Hello and welcome back to the Edbound second channel Patreon critiques. Today we'll be looking at Lego Green Goblin Has Gone Crazy by Kornado. Kornado? Longtime watcher. Always happy to see a video of his. He asked me about his new 3D animation. A lot of people have been doing 3D animation lately, myself included. So let's see what he's got. I've already been watching this, as you can tell. This is not my first take doing this. Now, I'm just gonna watch it first and then we'll talk about it later.
I'm the Green Goblin. Ugh. You have no idea how insane I am. How could you kill Gwen? You're a monster. No, I'm not. I'm just crazy. To me, Crazy Frog is just a regular frog. See, I'm crazy. Ask me what my favorite book is. That's a trick question. I'm too crazy to even read. I'm so crazy, it's infected my son. Now he says he wants to be a Twitch streamer. I've taken one fly over the cuckoo's nest. I'm simply crazy. Do you know why? Because I've been working on it for 5 years, but I still get no views on my YouTube channel. It's enough to make a man go insane. And enough to make the Green Goblin kill Spider-Man's girlfriend. You'll pay for that. On the contrary, Spider-Man, glider, go! Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
It's okay, it took me 11 years before I started getting views on my YouTube channel. So, I don't know, it takes a while for a lot of people. Let's see, my first few thoughts. There's something about this that's really funny. I like the voice acting a lot, just the way he's talking, the way he's smiling. And some of the movements I think are also pretty cool. But just the way he's like,
I'm too crazy to even read.
I don't know, there's something really funny about like the throat delivery pause, but like, just the way you can kind of really hear it. I don't know, I think the voice acting is really cool. Let me hear this part again.
I'm the Green. Could you kill Gwen? You're a monster.
There's something about you're a monster. I don't know, it makes me laugh. I think this is a funny video. In terms of the actual, like, let's see, everything else. So one thing when it comes to mecha bricks, personally, I always turn down the fingerprints because I think they're way too high. And I think maybe I'm not sure if you input any composition settings after you render, but if you use something called fog glow, it allows your characters to have like a little bit of a shine. It makes it look a little bit more realistic. But the animation itself, I think, is pretty solid. Like the fundamentals, the principles, you clearly have that. But if you're looking to maybe make it a little bit more, what's it called? I guess less computer looking, I will say there's a few moments specifically after these characters have settled from a pose. I think it kind of looks like the computer's doing it. When you set like two poses and a keyframe, but you have the keyframes kind of spaced apart, so that way the computer automatically fills the gap. One thing I always make sure to do when it comes to 3D animation, unless I am confident that nobody can see me being like not keyframing every single action, is I keyframe every single action. But I think like right here, when he puts his head down and then he puts it back up, it looks a little bit like you didn't actually keyframe that yourself. It looks like the computer did it. And I think making sure you keyframe every action is a really good way to like kind of hide the 3D animation of it all, to make it look more, I guess, like stop motion. But that's only if you're really going for that like stop motion kind of feel. Like when you do keyframe it, I think it's really solid. I guess right here you could have added a few more frames, just like maybe like 1 or 2 more frames to like end that little head turn. But that's like a nitpick. That's really nothing huge. These movements are pretty solid. I will say one other thing you could try doing is maybe change up the camera angle a bit. Now, honestly, when I'm watching this, I think the Green Goblin and the voice acting is actually entertaining enough to keep me completely locked in for the entire duration. But I think having a few extra camera angles, a few extra looks at him could also really be helpful in terms of making it feel like cool and new. I noticed you're using the body rock control, this little knob right here that like moves him around a lot. I do kind of like how much effort you're putting into animating all these moving parts. Like you're really twisting the head around. You're not just using the rig clearly. You're like actually animating the individual pieces, and that can be kind of cumbersome in Blender. Um, the lip syncing is 10 out of 10.
It's enough to make a man go insane.
The lip syncing is actually 10 out of 10. Like there's no notes. It's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be. I don't think there's any way you can make it better. But there is this moment right here, which on first viewing I thought was kind of maybe like, I think it's not necessarily the movement in terms of the way you animate it, but more like the actual pose itself. I think maybe Spider-Man should have ripped out like kind of like that, because I think that makes a little bit more sense from the viewer perspective. And also when he's sitting on the wall right here, it kind of confused me too. But you know, these are just like at the end of the day, they're just creative decisions. Oh, right here, I guess if I can get if I really want to be a jerk, I can say this is not actually touching the ground, Mr. Animator. But these are just like really small steps that you can take. To be honest, I feel like every single way you could improve is just very very small steps, because you do have a lot of things down. Lighting, I'm not the number one Blender lighter, if I'm being honest. There's a few things I don't feel too comfortable making pointers on, because I'm not the best at it myself, like lighting in a room like this. I personally think this is pretty solid. Maybe you could put in a lot more small spotlights instead of a couple big lights. But lighting is actually something I'm still trying to figure out myself in Blender, so I don't think you I mean, it's just one of those things you figure out bit by bit, right? You do trial and error. I wish I could help you more on that front, but I honestly think a lot of the things you do here are actually really good. I love this little jump right here. It's perfect. It has the perfect amount of like follow through, anticipation, and hang time. I think it's great. Boom. And I really like how the glider itself kind of like just like, it's like you're trying to grind him in there. Pause. But like, and I also like how like there's also like a bump right before it. Boom, boom. Like it's like really trying to kill him. And the ending joke.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
I like that a lot too. But even here, like, there's something a little bit. I think it's the way you animated his torso coming back down. There's something about it that feels a little bit floaty, kind of like they're moving like how you would move in a dream. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that you're letting the computer do some of the animation. I really do think that the best way to just circumvent that is to make sure that you're making sure that every single pose that the audience sees is just being keyframed by you. That because like when you don't have that, it kind of makes it looks like it's 3D, you know, in that kind of weird 3D kind of way, and not so much like handcrafted animation. Again, a lot of these shots, a lot of these movements are good. I will say, let's say, like maybe like this movement right here specific, I think maybe is the best example I can give, where it seems like you put in two different poses and let the computer do a lot of the work. And one of the reasons for that, I think, is just because this is a pretty high frame rate. It's not 12 or 15. It is a secret third thing. I'm assuming it's 24 or 30 even. So when you have these movements happening every single frame, and not only are the movements happening every single frame, but the space between each movement is equal every time. It's exactly the same. Instead of having like, you know, slow, fast, slow, you know, slow in, slow out, building momentum and stuff, it makes it look a lot more like, yeah, like I feel like you keyframe this and then you keyframe that and then you let the computer go from one end to the other. Now this isn't necessarily a problem, but I don't think this is the best way to present an animation to an audience. I just think they'll think maybe it looks a little bit artificial, you know? I do think the best way to do it is just to make sure you keyframe every single frame and every single little pose and movement, every single in between. Make sure you know, keep those principles animation in check, like, you know, momentum, squash and stretch, which is a lot more easy to do in Blender. The classic ones. I'll remember them later. You know what? Actually, no. You paid for this. I'll remember them right now. Squash and stretch. What's the other ones? Momentum. Slow in, slow out. Damn. Well, I forget the principles, but I've been animating for so long that they're all in the back of my head when I animate and when I critique too. I think that is my biggest note. That is just really my biggest note. Just make sure you keyframe every single animation. This movement right here looks a little bit wonky. I can kind of see what you're going for here, but the only issue is because this is the only movement where he stops for a little bit, it kind of sticks out a bit. And also, not only that, but if you do have a wind up like that, pretty much the next frame should be the finisher pose. It should have gone from here to here like instantly, you know? If you're gonna have if you're gonna have like a slight stop for any reason. But aside from that, I think this video is really funny, and I like it a lot. I actually really like it a lot. I think it's funny. I like the voice acting. The voice acting really sells it. I don't know if it's you voice acting, but this is so I can have it coming out on my birthday. August 10th is your birthday. Happy birthday, Kornado.
My YouTube channel. It's enough to make a man go insane, and enough to make the Green Goblin kill Spider-Man's girlfriend. Glider, go!
I like the sound of that.
Glider.
Now I like this too. One thing I really like about this is how much you do the out of socket thing. I like how much you go for it and how much you really kind of push the envelope with these movements.
Go!
It's unique and different, you know? I think you should keep doing that. Alright, next up, you asked me to also review Peter Parkour animation. Whoa, okay. You want me to kind of like look at the web swinging. He's hustling and bustling. Nice. Oh, I like that. That's a really great run animation. There's really great, some really great jumps in there, some really great motions, I think. I do think these poses are really great. These are some really nice poses you have going on. And when I watch it, it kind of just looks solid. It looks nice. I like this run a lot, but I like this flip. I think is really perfect. Personally, I think right here like after he shoots the web, it seems like he stops a little bit too early. I would have him hold on to webs a little bit longer and have him dip really low. You know, when you have Spider-Man web swing, I wish I had an elastic band with me on me right now, but I don't seem to have one, so I'm just gonna use this measuring tape, which is not quite the same. But like, it's like, remember, he's like a slingshot. You know, you wanna pull him back, and then release that. Obviously, this is not the best example. I don't have a rubber band. But I think he should have dipped a lot lower, and then shot right back up. Now, I'm not entirely sure what frames per second you're using, but I think maybe you could also benefit from just going a little bit lower, like maybe 12. And let's see here. So I like how you have moments where he clearly pulls himself on the string, on the webs. Like there he spun the web, but that's not enough to launch him forward. So you can see his arm pull back and like, you know, propel him. He pulls, and then he uses that momentum. He grabs another web, and then he swings around it. It's a really great pivot. Let's see here. He kind of just jumps up here though, which is a little bit confusing. I will say maybe there should be more of an up and down kind of motion. I think we should be going for here. And let's see here. I think, you know what another thing is? I think it's your upward peaks. They don't quite last long enough. While it looks fine, it's not quite satisfying. And I think that's because Um, it's like, you know, it should be kind of like swimming. He's going, he falls down, then he comes up. Like, okay, all right, I'm gonna demonstrate with my hand. Okay, pretend my hand is Spider-Man. He goes down, pew, and then he stops because he spins a web, and then the tension from his web slows his descent and yanks him back up. And on the yank back up, it should slowly build speed. And then he's like in the air, and he's like, he has some hang time, so he's gonna spend some time there until gravity once again picks him back up and sends him down, where the process kind of repeats itself. I think, let's see, watching it forward, I feel like it's what's it called? Yeah, the way he bounces back up, there's not enough tension in the web, and I think you can accomplish this more specifically by adding frames where he drops faster, and then his his fall is broken by the web, right? You have the web stretch, like right here. If he was what's it called? If he was still moving down this entire time while he's getting to this pose, I think it would look really nice. But I don't think there's enough time spent on the web kind of stretching and adding that tension, adding that sort of pull back like a slingshot or a bow and arrow. You need to add more of that, I think, to make these web movements feel a little bit more like stringy, rubber band like, and like Spider-Man, you know. Because then after it stretches, it like reaches a point where it's just like, okay, I got you, Spider-Man. Now it's sling back up, and then he slings back up really quickly, just like that. Then he has some hang time, which again I also think you need to spend more time on. You need to like, because if it's gonna launch him up, you gotta make him launch up like a pendulum. I'm actually gonna look for a rubber band. 1 second. Okay, I don't have a rubber band, but I do have a friendship bracelet, which I think is the same principle. So check this out. Okay, I think it's like we have the web. He spins the web, and as Spider-Man on the bottom here falls, the web stretches until it can't stretch no more, and then it slings him back up. I think you need to spend more time on that stretching bit until it can't stretch no more, and it slings him back up. And as Spider-Man slings back up, he's like, woo! He goes like, you know, like I think that that arc where he's actually like in the air, and he does the little hill, the little McDonald's hills, like the Golden Arch. That needs to last a little bit longer. And I think it's also kind of hard doing a web swing animation from the front here, because the only way you can really convey that is just through the up and down vertical movement. But it's still possible. See, like right there, I think that was a really great example of the stretch and the tension. But I wish he launched up a little bit more, because the way he launches up and the way he like shoots up has to be relative to the amount of time you spend on the web stretching like this, you know? So he needs to go much higher, much more like spring like, much greater. Cause yeah, I feel like the physics and the gravity kind of just feel off. He pulls himself up, which that looks good. Pew! Although again, if you know what, one thing it feels like the force that he's using is not quite pulling him up as much as I'd expect him to, based on the amount of force he's exerting. I feel like he didn't go up that high when he should have gone higher. But this part is fine. He's parkouring. I like that a lot. He flips. He grabs on. Yeah, see, look, I like this a lot. You have that real nice squash and stretch. He pulls himself forward. He squishes into the wall, and then he bounces off. And it's a really big bounce too. And I think that kind of bounce is like, you need to execute more of this power in your animation, in the swinging part itself. Not only that, but you also have a good hang time here. He hangs in the air and then he spins some webs. So I think right around here he should have spun webs, because if you did that and then have the webs tense around here and then they shoot him back up, that shot him back way too. I feel like there's not enough frames on that to make it feel like cohesive. And then he kind of like, we dip a little bit, but then he stops dipping. Need to keep the physics like consistent too, right? Because he's falling, but he stops gravity right around here. It's a little bit disorienting, and he pulls himself forward here. But I love this little bit right here. Pew! So yeah, ooh, that's really nice. I like the Spider-Man model. So that's basically my main note. Is just look more forward. Whoops. Look more forward to like moments where you can kind of like have the tension build and then shoot back up. Remember, it's like a slingshot. Every single time Spider-Man swings a web, it's like a slingshot. Um, just make sure that like there's a solid amount of time between him spinning the web, holding it, and then letting it stretch out, and then shooting him back up. And make sure it's all like relative to each other. So if the web really stretches a lot and dips down really low, and it takes a while for it to reach its breaking point until it snaps back up, make sure that when it does take a long time, it's almost like it's building up power, you know, like you're squishing it up. So if you spend a lot of time conveying that tension to your audience, then make sure that that release is crazy, you know, like it has to be relative in power. But aside from that, I still think you got solid fundamentals. Really funny voice acting, if I'm going to be honest. I really like that. And I think really just great work here all around. Kornado always has had like a lot of has always shown a lot of potential. It's kind of nice to see that you're still pursuing this after all these years. Don't give up, man. You know, we all start somewhere, but I mean, we also sometimes it also just takes a while to like get to where we want to be too, in terms of like views and all that stuff. Like I said, it took me 11 years. But thank you again very much for your donation. If you would like one of these critiques for your own videos, just send me a message after you donate to my Patreon, patreon.com/adbone. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.